How you doing, guys? Today the plan is to get this old Senior away from my car and get the front end on it. Hopefully winter is coming, so hopefully I can get this on all four wheels, because ultimately I'd like to push the rolling chassis back into my shed, because trying to get my truck in here, it's pretty tight between the 401 for my 65 Buick and the Senior. It's pretty tight right here, so I don't feel like going through the winter quite with this thing sitting right there. So I want to get this thing on all four wheels, move it into the shed. I'll put my RJs maybe right here. Those are little, so those will fit nice between the truck and the red car. So that's the plan, because once I get it as a roller, the old Wisconsin is coming off that wood dolly, and we'll start tearing that apart. So let's get this thing away from the car and in a position where we can work on it. Let's talk through what's gonna need to be done and what is needed in order to put the front end of my Senior back together. Front axle tube has a series of bushings on the front and the back of this actual mounting tube. I added this brace to the top. Most Seniors are all cracked right here, so I went ahead, re-welded it, and then I made this brace to kind of look original, and then I welded that in just to support that area, so that way theoretically won't have any more issues with this breaking. There are two bushings. There's one here in the front, there's one in the back, which accepts this slide tube. The slide tube actually goes through the bushings like that, and then there's the big bolt which goes through the frame, which meets up to the back plate, but that bolt actually slides down through this center tube. There is a huge nut, I believe that's 3/4 inch. I'm just pulling this thing out real quick. Put that right there. There is that 3/4 inch nut. Now there is a lock washer that's supposed to be between the nut and the back plate where this bolt goes through. I can't find it, so I'll have to go get one. But for right now, I am going to put this still together, and I'll just put the nut on. I'll get the lock washer later and put it on. We have two 5/16 roll pins, and what those are the pins that hold the knuckles to the spindles. Now, it's supposed to be 1/4 inch, or at least mine was originally a 1/4 inch, but their holes were so beat up, I just drilled it all out. I drilled out the knuckles and these new spindles that I made for 5/16. So it's a little bit bigger roll pin, a little bit more heavy duty, and I believe it's just going to work better. Why new spindles? I made these spindles in a video years ago. You can check out my playlist, because the original spindles were just junk. You can see somebody stick welded a square bolt for a spindle, or a replacement spindle. It's all bent. It's a total disaster. It's complete junk. The next thing was the knuckles were so frozen welded, I mean, I shouldn't say frozen, rusted to the spindle shaft itself, that there was no choice but to cut the tops of the spindles off in order to get the spindle out of that axle tube. So that necessitated making new spindles. Also, basically, I used this one right here because it was in pretty darn still good shape for a template. And you can see there's like a little cutoff nipple right here. There's the poopy welds that they use, the stick welds that they used to use. All of the correct size washers. And I just made a replacement. Painted them silver, probably shouldn't have done that, but we'll worry about that at a later date. But essentially, made 2 new spindles, you know, same diameter, same thread pitch, cotter pin, same size washers, everything. I even put a little square piece of band iron in place, and then, you know, not that I made sure, but my welds are a little poopy looking like the originals. So, and then, oh, and I do have the little cutoff nibs, just like the originals. RJ35s had that. They must have used a lathe and a cutoff tool to cut their pieces of bar stock down, because even on early RJ35s, you'll see these little cutoff gets to a certain, the cutoff tool gets to a certain point, and then the bar will just flip off. So did that, made sure that's all the same. I will just lightly sand those down. We'll give them a little bit of lube, and then we'll slide them through the brand new bushings that are installed. You probably can't see that, but there's brand new bushings in the top and the bottom of both pieces. Again, there's a video in my playlist of me restoring that front end, because that took a bunch of work. It was bent. I had to cut it, straighten it out, and then re-weld it all back together. But there it is, and that's the Rudy Metal Primer color that I'm going to go with the wheels, I'm pretty sure, just because it just all kind of matches it just matches. That little bit of like weirdo paint, that's just the oil light bushings that I put in. That's the oil from the oil light bushings that just migrated through the primer over the years. This thing's been done for 3-4 years, sitting underneath my car. So it is what it is. I think it's just gonna add to the look. So let's go ahead and let's get this thing all put together. So let's take a look at what we got going on here. The main bolt is in. The slide piece is inside the bushings. Everything is pre-lubed. I do have the main nut in place. I just got to get a lock washer. It's finger tight right now. I'll lock it down once I get the lock washer. I went ahead and pre-lubed all the bushings, top, bottom, on both sides, and then just pre-lubed the replacement spindles and slid them into place. I got these punches just holding them in place until it falls. I have this piece of tape here because it kept whacking. You can see where it whacked. It probably ruined the primer. Oh, of course it did. But I had this there to kind of protect it. It didn't really protect it very well. Anyways, moving on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lift up the frame, take the jack stands out, and set it down onto the spindles on the rug. That way, when I go ahead to drive the roll pins in for the steering knuckles, it'll just stay put. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, real quick, I've already started installing one of the roll pins in one of the knuckles. It seems to go in pretty good. Just going to lubricate it a little bit with some WD-40, so that way it just slides in pretty easy for me, and I don't really have to beat the crap out of it to get in there. I've had them on at one time, so this shouldn't be troublesome. This should go fairly smooth. So let's get it done. After owning this thing almost 7 years, and it never being a rolling chassis, we are right there. The front end went together beautifully. I just have this rag here because of the weight. The tube wants to bang the frame, so I just don't want the primer to get messed up too much. But as you can see, everything is in really, really nice shape. The new end links are in. I got to get the clamps. I'll do that later, but the new end links are in. They fit real good. I haven't tightened them down yet. It's just all loosely fitted just to make sure everything lines up. We take the axle end and let's see if we can get this straight. All right, that appears to be straight. The way I have it adjusted, the other side is nice and straight. The bar is centered between the links, and the angle of each knuckle is very, very close. I mean, enough close nobody would notice unless I told you, just as I did. So with that being said, I would like to mount the front tires. Now, my plan is, as you can see here, what I've done is I've used a Rudy Metal primer, and then I actually wet sand and buffed the primer. And I think that gives me a pretty darn good match to the, natural patinaed frame. So that's the direction I would like to go with the front rims and the rear rims eventually. It's just too cold right now. In the spring, I will do it. So putting these rims onto the spindles, I don't want to go hog crazy and like mount them 100% because I'm gonna have to take them off, mask them all off, and then shoot them. With that being said, I still have to put some kind of protective barrier on the spindles and the bearings. In other words, I do need to put a little light coat of grease, which I will. So what are the parts that are needed to rebuild or redo the front end on my Senior? Okay. The races inside the rims were fine, so I didn't bang them out or press them out. I left them alone. But I did buy 4 new taper roller bearings. The part number for that is, I use a Timken bearing 09067//09195. They did come with the bearing and the race. Again, I'm not using the races because the races in the rims are fine, and if this was a car, I would do it, but it's a tractor. It's more than sufficient. So we have an inner bearing, and then there's an outer bearing that goes like this. So you put the inner bearing in first, so that rolls. You put the rim on, put the next bearing in. There is a small machine bearing that goes on. Ooh, bad eyes, sorry. On, and then there's a 1/2-16 castle nut that goes on to the end of the spindle like this, okay? And then I'm just taking this off for visual purposes. There's a small hole for the cotter pin. Now, I'm gonna put the cotter pin in, but I'm not gonna bend it. I'm just gonna put it in so that way it holds everything together, and I know it's not gonna come apart. I'm just gonna put a very light coat of grease on the bearing and on the races, only because I'm just going to, at this point in time and for at least the next 6 or 7 months, I'm just going to be pushing this thing a little bit in the garage, around the floor of the garage to do various projects on it. So with that, let me dig in. Let's finally get this thing to stand on all 4 legs. So after who knows how many years, this Senior is now a roller. I'm real happy with what I see preliminarily. I did make some adjustments to the center link in order to get the tires kind of straight. I just wanted to get, that looks pretty darn straight. Everything looks really good. We'll take a little gander of how things appear. Yeah, I think that looks amazing. I haven't put the cotter pins in. I'll do that eventually. One thing I did notice, and this might be controversial, but I don't have original caps, and I'm not going to put the original caps in. I made these aluminum caps for the front rims, which I particularly like. I think when you stand back, I think that's nice and clean, and I really I like them, so I'm going to use them. The only problem is that you can see they rock on the spindle. I didn't machine them down enough, so let's run over to my buddy's machine shop and let's get this thing, or let's get both these caps squared away. All right, in order to get these to work, I gotta lower the inside face. So basically this part of it right there. This is the exterior. I need to lower this down from maybe a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch. So I got it here chucked up in the lathe. Gonna get a tool bit, get in there and do some hogging. There we go. Doesn't look like they came out too bad. I mean, I did measure it to a point, but I really just eyeballed them. All right, let's head back to my shop and let's see if these things will work. All right, we're back. Let's see how they fit. The dish looks pretty good. Wheel number 1, nice and flush, just the way I wanted it. Yeah, that looks good. And then we'll take the other cap and put it over here. Oops. And nice and flush. All right. Well, the front end is all back on and she is standing on all of her 4 legs. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for all your viewership. Thank you to all the new subscribers. I truly appreciate all your support. If you could please like, share, and subscribe this, to this video, that would be greatly appreciated. Next up, we're going to be putting the foot pedals in, all the brake bars, springs, and a bunch of other good stuff, just to kind of continue the process of completing the chassis. So with that, until we see each other again, or until the next project, you have a great day. Thank you very much. Bye.